If you had told me a year ago that my boss would end up living in my apartment, I would have laughed so hard I'd probably choke on my microwave noodles. But life, in all its chaotic glory, apparently thinks unlikely sitcom premises is a good theme for me. The story really starts on an ordinary Monday morning. And by ordinary, I mean the kind where my alarm didn't go off, I forgot to put the coffee pot in the machine, and my pants had a stain that I only noticed once I got on the bus. The cherry on top? My boss, Mr. Caldwell, called an urgent staff meeting at 8 a.m. sharp. Which meant I had approximately 10 minutes to look like a fully functioning adult who had his life together. Spoiler alert, I did not succeed. By the time I rushed into the office, I was sweating like I had run a marathon, my shirt untucked, my hair doing this thing where it looked like I had been electrocuted, and my laptop bag swinging dangerously like I was preparing to use it as a weapon. "Glad you could join us, Evan," Mr. Caldwell said in that calm, terrifying tone bosses use when they're mentally calculating how to fire you without violating HR policy. I muttered something like, "Traffic," even though everyone knew I took the bus. The meeting itself was classic corporate nonsense: budget cuts, synergy, quarterly targets that sounded less like numbers and more like abstract art. I nodded at random intervals, pretending to take notes but really writing by milk and doodling a picture of my cat. When the meeting ended, Caldwell pulled me aside. "Evan. My office. Now, let me explain something about my boss." Mr. Caldwell was the kind of man who could make the phrase, "good morning," sound like a death threat. He had this presence, like he was always 2 steps ahead in some invisible chess game and you were just the pawn about to get sacrificed. He wasn't cruel, exactly. Just intimidating. So when he said "my office," I didn't think, maybe he's going to give me a promotion. No. I thought, this is it. I'm about to be escorted out with my plant and a cardboard box. I followed him into his office, already mentally updating my resume. But instead of firing me, he sat down, steepled his fingers like some kind of villain in a spy movie, and said, "Evan, how would you describe your living situation?" I blinked. Cheap?" His eyebrow twitched. "Be specific." "Well," I said slowly, "I have a 1-bedroom apartment above a laundromat. My neighbor practices the trumpet at 2 in the morning. The ceiling leaks when it rains. And the oven only works if you kick it first. But rent's manageable." Caldwell leaned back in his chair, nodding like he was considering the stock market. "And do you live alone?" "Yes," I said, dragging out the word. "Why?" He paused for a long moment, then said the sentence that would change my entire life. "I need a place to stay. Temporarily. And I want to rent your couch." I laughed. Not a polite chuckle, but a full-on laugh that made me snort. "Good one, sir." He didn't laugh back. My smile died. "Wait. You're serious?" Caldwell nodded once. "Very." I stared at him. My brain went through every possible explanation: hidden camera prank, social experiment, maybe he'd lost a bet. "Why, my couch. You could literally stay anywhere. Hotel. Airbnb. Your house?" That last word seemed to hit a nerve, because he cleared his throat. "My house is unavailable." I wanted to ask 100 questions, but then he said, "And I'll pay double your rent." Reader, I wish I could tell you I stood my ground, valued my privacy, and told him no. But you see, my bank account had exactly $37.48 in it at the time, and my fridge contained 1 expired yogurt and a questionable jar of pickles. So instead, what came out of my mouth was, "When can you move in?" I regretted it the second the words left my lips. By Friday evening, I was frantically trying to make my disaster of an apartment look less depressing. Which was impossible, because how do you make a place above a laundromat look like anything other than what it is? I vacuumed. I hid my dirty laundry in the closet. I shoved all the random junk under the bed. And then I stood in the middle of the living room, staring at my couch, wondering if it was physically possible to make it look more like a bed and less like something a raccoon would refuse to sleep on. At exactly 7 p.m., there was a knock on the door. I opened it to find Caldwell standing there in jeans and a button-down shirt. Which was somehow more unsettling than seeing him in a suit, because it made him look almost human. He was holding a single suitcase and, of all things, a houseplant. "Evening," he said. Come in." He stepped inside, looking around with a critical eye. "Smaller than I expected." "Yeah, well, it's not exactly listed on Architectural Digest," I muttered. He set his suitcase down neatly, placed the plant on the counter, and then sat on the couch like he was conducting a job interview with it. "This will do." I stood there awkwardly, wondering if I was supposed to offer him a welcome drink or a tour. Instead, I blurted, "So, why are you here? I mean, why me?" Caldwell's jaw tightened. For a second, I thought he wasn't going to answer. Then he said, "Let's just say circumstances changed. And I needed somewhere off the radar." "Off the radar?" I repeated. What are you, in witness protection? He gave me a look that said, don't push it. So I didn't. For the rest of the night, we coexisted in this weird silence. I made boxed mac and cheese. He ate half of it without complaint. Then he unfolded the blanket I gave him, laid it out with military precision, and went to sleep on the couch at exactly 10 p.m. like it was the most normal thing in the world. Me? I lay awake in my bedroom, staring at the ceiling, wondering how my life had turned into a rejected sitcom pilot. And that, dear listener, was only the beginning. By the second morning of living with my boss, I realized there were two kinds of silence. There was the peaceful silence, like when you wake up on a Saturday and no one has texted you yet, and you can hear birds chirping faintly outside. And then there was Caldwell silence. A silence so heavy, so judgmental, that it made me feel like I'd committed 3 federal crimes just by existing. I stumbled out of my room at 7:45 a.m., hair sticking up, wearing mismatched socks, only to find Caldwell already seated at the kitchen table. Dressed in a crisp button-down shirt, sipping coffee out of my chipped Garfield mug. He looked like he had been awake since 5 a.m. plotting world domination. Morning, I croaked. He nodded once. You're late. Late for what? It's Saturday. Discipline doesn't take weekends off, Evan. I wanted to argue, but instead I grabbed a spoon and started eating cereal straight out of the box because all my bowls were in the sink. Caldwell stared at me like I had just committed treason. You live like this? He asked finally, his voice dripping with disbelief. Like what? He gestured vaguely at the room. Chaos. Disorder. A complete lack of systems. It's called being normal, I muttered through a mouthful of cereal. Normal is inefficient, he said. I rolled my eyes and poured milk directly into the cereal box. His horrified gasp was the highlight of my morning. By week 2, we had settled into something resembling a routine. A very weird, dysfunctional routine, but a routine nonetheless. Caldwell would wake up at 5 o'clock, do some kind of terrifying push-up regimen in my living room, shower with military precision, and then make himself exactly 1 cup of black coffee. No cream. No sugar. Just sadness. Meanwhile, I'd roll out of bed at 8:15, panic because I was supposed to leave for work at 8:10, and then sprint around the apartment like a chicken with its head cut off while Caldwell silently judged me. He also started fixing things. At first, it was little stuff. Tightening a loose cabinet hinge. Replacing the batteries in the smoke detector. But then he escalated. One day I came home and he had literally reorganized my entire kitchen. Plates were stacked by size. Spices alphabetized. My fridge looked like a grocery store display. Where are my pickles? I asked, staring at the immaculate shelves. Top left. Behind the mustard. I opened the jar. These are new pickles. The old ones expired in 2019. You're welcome. I wanted to be mad, but, okay, yeah, maybe my digestive system was grateful. But the real problem started when our professional lives collided with our personal ones. You see, at work, Caldwell was still. Caldwell. Stern. Demanding. The kind of guy who could make an intern cry with just a raised eyebrow. And now, every time he gave me an assignment, my brain screamed, this man knows I leave my wet towels on the floor. One afternoon, during a team meeting, Caldwell announced, I expect the quarterly report on my desk by Monday. Everyone groaned, except me. Because I knew what Monday meant, me hunched over my laptop at 2 a.m., while Caldwell sat 10 feet away on the couch, silently sipping tea like some kind of productivity warden. Sure enough, Sunday night rolled around. I was on the floor, laptop balanced on a stack of pizza boxes, typing frantically. Caldwell appeared in the doorway, arms crossed. You missed a decimal, he said. I froze. What? He stepped closer, glanced at my screen, and tapped the line with one finger. There. That figure should be 12.5, not 125. I blinked at him. Are you helping me? I'm preventing you from making me look incompetent in front of the board, he replied. I scowled, but he wasn't wrong. For the next 2 hours, he hovered behind me like a drill sergeant, correcting numbers, pointing out formatting errors, and lecturing me about clarity in data presentation. By the time we finished, the report looked flawless. But I was emotionally scarred. Living with Caldwell also meant learning things about him I was never meant to know. For example, he talked in his sleep. The first time it happened, I woke up at 3 a.m. to hear him mumbling on the couch. At first, I thought he was on the phone. But no, he was asleep. Synergy, must, optimize, no, Jenkins, not the PowerPoint. I recorded it on my phone. The next day, I played it for him. His expression didn't change. Delete that. Never, I said, grinning. This is gold. He glared. If this ends up on the internet, what's it worth to you? I asked, already imagining the YouTube title, My Boss Dreams About Spreadsheets. He narrowed his eyes. Double rent. I considered. Deal. But perhaps the strangest part of all this was how my coworkers reacted when they found out. I hadn't meant to tell them. But one morning, during coffee break, my friend Mia cornered me. "You've been weird lately," she said. "I'm always weird." "Weirder than usual," she pressed. "Spill." I hesitated. Should I tell her? Would she even believe me? Finally, I whispered, "My boss is living on my couch." She blinked. "Excuse me?" "You heard me." Mia burst out laughing so loudly that half the office turned to look at us. "Oh my God. This is the best thing I've ever heard." "Shuh," I hissed. "He can't know I told anyone." Of course, Mia immediately told everyone. By lunch, the entire department was buzzing with theories. Some thought Caldwell was broke. Others thought he was running from the mafia. One guy swore he was a secret government agent. And naturally, people started asking me for inside info. What's his favorite food? Does he wear pajamas? Does he cry? I became the unofficial Caldwell correspondent, reporting on my boss's personal habits like some deranged reality TV show host. Caldwell, of course, suspected nothing. Or maybe he did, and he was just biding his time before firing me. With him, you could never tell. Things really escalated one Friday night. I had invited Mia and a couple of friends over for pizza and movies. I forgot, however, that Caldwell's definition of Friday night was catch up on expense reports. So there he was, in my living room, laptop open, papers neatly stacked, when my friends barged in with beer and snacks. "Evan." Mia yelled. "We brought extra cheese sticks," she froze. "Oh my God. It's him." Caldwell looked up, expression unreadable. "Hello." My friends stared like they had just spotted a celebrity in the wild. "Is it true you alphabetized his spice rack?" Mia blurted. Caldwell's eyes flicked to me. I swallowed hard. "They know." He closed his laptop. "Of course they do." What happened next was surreal. Instead of storming off, Caldwell joined us. Sat down on the armchair. Ate a slice of pizza with a knife and fork like a psychopath. And then, when Mia put on a rom-com, he watched it in complete silence, only pausing once to say, "That's an inefficient proposal strategy." By the end of the night, my friends were obsessed with him. "He's hilarious," Mia said later. "He didn't even make a joke." I protested. "Exactly. It's comedy gold." And that's when I realized I was living in a nightmare. By month 2, it was clear this wasn't temporary. Caldwell had settled in. His plant was thriving on my counter. His suitcase had migrated to my closet. He even bought his own slippers. I should have been furious. I should have kicked him out. But here's the thing, my apartment was cleaner, my bills were paid on time, and for the first time in my life, I was actually keeping track of my expenses. Still, every once in a while, I'd look at him sitting on my couch, sipping tea like he owned the place, and wonder, how long before this exploded? Because one thing was certain, it would explode. I just didn't know how big the blast radius would be. If the first month of living with Caldwell was chaos and the second month was adjustment, the third month was open warfare. It started innocently enough. I came home from work one Thursday to find that my TV remote had been replaced. Not stolen, not lost. Replaced. The old beat-up clicker I'd had since college was gone, and in its place sat a sleek, terrifyingly complicated universal remote with more buttons than a spaceship. "What happened to my remote?" I asked. "It was inefficient," Caldwell replied without looking up from his laptop. "I knew how to use it." "You also once spent 12 minutes trying to change the input source." I timed it. "That's because the button was broken." He sipped his tea. Problem solved. That was the moment I realized Caldwell wasn't just coexisting with me, he was slowly taking over my life. The second battle was the thermostat. I like my apartment warm. Cozy. Comfortable. Caldwell, on the other hand, apparently thrives in sub-zero conditions. One night I woke up shivering, checked the thermostat, and saw it had been lowered to 62 degrees 62. That's not room temperature. That's meat locker. The next morning I confronted him. "Did you turn the heat down?" I demanded. "It promotes alertness," he said calmly. "Cooler temperatures enhance focus. Cooler temperatures make me feel like I'm dying in a Siberian prison." Then buy a sweater. Thus began the thermostat war. Every evening, I'd nudge it back up to 72. Every night, he'd drop it back to 62. I tried sneaking out at 3 a.m. to reset it, only to find Caldwell already awake, standing guard like a hawk. At one point I even taped the dial in place. He retaliated by buying his own tape. By week's end, the power company probably thought we were running an experiment in extreme climate fluctuations. Work life wasn't faring much better. Now that the whole office knew I was living with the boss, things had gotten weird. People treated me like Caldwell's spy. Whispering stopped whenever I entered a room. One intern actually slipped me a note that said, "If he's planning layoffs, blink twice." The worst part? Caldwell noticed. During one meeting, he paused mid-sentence and said, "Why is everyone looking at Evan?" Dead silence. Dozens of eyeballs shifted guiltily between me and him. I gave a weak smile. "They like my haircut?" "I didn't even have a haircut." Caldwell narrowed his eyes. I was certain he knew exactly what was happening but was just waiting for me to crack. Then came the dinner incident. It was Friday night, and I decided to order takeout. A simple, innocent plan. I picked Thai food. Spicy noodles, spring rolls, curry, the works. I was halfway through the order when Caldwell appeared behind me. "What are you doing?" "Ordering dinner." He frowned. "You didn't consult me." "It's my apartment." "It's also my dinner, unless you expect me to starve." "Fine," I snapped. "What do you want?" "Grilled salmon, quinoa, steamed vegetables." I stared at him. "From a Thai place?" Adaptability is key. We compromised by ordering 2 separate meals. When the food arrived, Caldwell actually took notes while eating. "This curry is imbalanced," he said. "Too much coconut milk. No discipline." I threw a spring roll at his head. But the breaking point, the absolute catastrophe that shattered whatever fragile truce we had, came 3 months in. It was a Tuesday. I came home exhausted, dreaming of collapsing on the couch and binge-watching reality TV until my brain melted. But when I opened the door, my couch was gone. Not moved. Not covered. Gone. In its place was a sleek glass desk, an ergonomic chair, and a monitor the size of a movie theater screen. I dropped my bag. "Where's my couch?" Caldwell didn't even flinch. The couch was inefficient. "This is now a productivity zone." I just stood there, speechless. "You threw out my couch?" "Donated. Tax deductible." "Where am I supposed to sit?" He gestured at the ergonomic chair. "That's not a sitting chair, that's a torture device." He calmly typed something on the monitor. "You'll thank me. This will improve your posture." That was it. The final straw. The fight that followed could probably be heard 3 blocks away. I yelled about boundaries. He lectured about discipline. I accused him of invading my life. He accused me of wasting potential. At one point, I may or may not have called him a robot disguised as a human in a J.Crew shirt. Finally, I snapped. "Get out." For the first time, Caldwell looked surprised. He actually blinked. "Excuse me?" "Get out. You've taken over my apartment, my kitchen, my couch, my thermostat. I can't live like this anymore." He set down his pen. His expression softened, just a little. "Evan. I thought we had an arrangement." "This isn't an arrangement. It's a hostile takeover." Silence stretched between us. And for the first time since this whole nightmare started, Caldwell looked human. Tired, even. "I didn't intend to overstep," he said quietly. I was thrown off. Caldwell? Admitting fault? Was the world ending? That night, he packed a bag. Just one. I offered to help, but he waved me off. At the door, he paused. "You're more capable than you realize, Evan. Chaotic, undisciplined, but capable." I didn't know what to say. So I just muttered, "Good luck, wherever you're going." He gave a single nod. And then he was gone. The next few days were strange. My apartment felt too quiet. Too messy. The spice rack was back to its natural, jumbled state. The thermostat stayed at a perfect 72, but somehow it felt less satisfying. My couch was gone forever, replaced by a half-empty space that reminded me of what had been there. For the first time in months, I had my freedom back. And I hated it. It happened the following Friday. I was walking home from work when I saw him. Caldwell. Standing outside a coffee shop, looking more casual than I'd ever seen him. No tie. No jacket. Just a button-down shirt, sleeves rolled up, coffee in hand. For a moment, I froze. Should I say something? Should I walk away? He saw me first. "Evan." "Caldwell." We stood there, awkward. Finally, I blurted, "House, living somewhere that isn't my apartment?" He smirked. "Less chaotic. More lonely." I scratched my head. "Yeah. Same here." We both laughed, and for the first time, it didn't feel tense. "Listen," he said, "I've secured a new place. Larger. Better suited for structure." "Good," I said. "That's good. But," he hesitated. "I may require assistance moving in. Temporarily." I groaned. "Oh no. Absolutely not. I am not moving in with you." He raised an eyebrow. "Who said anything about you moving in?" "I simply meant, perhaps, you could stop by. Help with the couch." I squinted at him. "You bought a couch?" "Of course. Even I understand its necessity." I laughed. "Fine. but I'm sitting on it first. Deal. And that's how it ended. Not with an explosion. Not with a ruined friendship. But with something in between. Mutual respect, begrudging admiration, and maybe, just maybe, the start of something like friendship. Sure, he was still my boss. Still terrifying. Still capable of reorganizing my life in a single afternoon. But for some reason, knowing that he had once slept on my couch, argued over my thermostat, and eaten pizza with a fork made him less untouchable. And me? Well, let's just say I keep my spice rack alphabetized now. Not for him. For me. Because maybe, just maybe, a little discipline isn't the worst thing in the world.